Jesse Marshall noticed the change 3 weeks before he understood why. Maureen had started dressing in the bathroom, door closed, even when he was reading in bed. "Just feeling self-conscious lately," she'd said when he asked. But self-conscious was never a word that applied to his wife of 5 years. The truth revealed itself on a Thursday evening. Jesse came home early from authenticating a collection of World War II letters and found Maureen in their bedroom, back to the mirror. He stood in the hallway, frozen, as she pulled her blouse over her head. In the reflection, he saw them clearly, bite marks. Dark purple crescents tracking down her spine like grotesque punctuation marks. He must have made a sound because Maureen spun around, eyes wide. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jesse walked forward, his mind strangely calm, processing information the way he processed ancient texts, looking for context, for meaning. "Let me see," he said quietly. Maureen's mouth opened, but no words came. He reached out and gently turned her around, lifting the edge of her shirt. More marks. Fresh bruises on her ribs, shaped like fingerprints. Definitely not his hands. "Who?" The word came out flat, emotionless. Maureen's face crumpled, but there was something else there too. Something that looked almost like relief. Or was it guilt? She whispered, "You weren't supposed to find out yet." Yet. Not like this. Not at all. Yet. The word hung between them like a blade, and Jesse felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't just an affair. This was calculated. Jesse had always been good at puzzles. It was why he built a career translating documents that others found impenetrable. Medieval Latin, archaic German, coded messages from dead empires. His mind naturally sought patterns, connections, the story beneath the story. "Yet implies a timeline," he said, still looking at the marks on his wife's skin. "Which means this is part of a plan. So let's skip the tears and the excuses." "What plan, Maureen?" She stepped back, pulling her shirt down, her expression hardening. There was the woman he'd married. Sharp, ambitious, always calculating angles. "It's complicated. Uncomplicated. I can't. Not yet. Just give me 2 more weeks. Please, Jesse." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. 2 weeks for what? So you and whoever's leaving those marks can finish whatever you're doing? Do I get divorced after this plan completes? Or do I get something worse? Her silence was answer enough. Jesse grabbed his jacket and keys. "I'm staying at a hotel. Don't call me. Don't text. When I'm ready to know everything, I'll find out myself." Jesse wait. But he was already gone, his mind already working. Maureen wasn't smart enough to orchestrate something complex on her own. She was involved, yes, but someone else was pulling strings. And Jesse was very good at finding the puppet master. At a hotel room that smelled of industrial cleaning solution and other people's cigarettes, Jesse opened his laptop. He'd married Maureen 5 years ago after a whirlwind romance that had seemed genuine at the time. She'd been drawn to his work, or so she'd said, fascinated by his stories of cracking codes in medieval manuscripts, of discovering fraud in supposedly priceless documents. She worked in marketing for a mid-sized firm, made decent money, had her own friends. But 6 months ago, something had shifted. She'd started going to a new gym, taking work dinners that ran late, coming home smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't his. Jesse opened their shared credit card account. He'd never been the jealous type, never felt the need to monitor her, but now he scrolled through recent charges with clinical detachment. The gym was called Apex Athletic, upscale, expensive. He cross-referenced the charges with her calendar. 3 times a week, regular as clockwork. Then he found it, a charge from 3 weeks ago at Mercato, an Italian restaurant across town. A Tuesday night. Maureen had told him she was at a work event that Tuesday. He checked her work calendar, which synced to his. No event listed. Jesse pulled up Mercato's website. High-end, private booths. The kind of place you took someone you wanted to impress. He enlarged the photo gallery and stopped at one image. The interior, with its leather booths and soft lighting. In the background, barely visible, was a framed photograph on the wall, a black and white print of the city skyline. On impulse, he searched for Apex Athletic. The gym's Instagram feed was full of promotional photos. Jesse scrolled until he found what he was looking for. A grand opening photo from 8 months ago. Standing in the front row, cutting the ribbon, was a man in an expensive suit. Preston Moore. Jesse sat back, his mind clicking pieces into place. He knew that name. Not personally, but professionally. 3 months ago, he'd been hired to authenticate documents from the estate sale of a woman named Dorothy Hartwell, who died at 96. Among her papers had been a thick folder of letters and legal documents from the 1950s. Most were routine, but one folder had made Jesse pause. Correspondence regarding the disappearance of a young man named James Cartwright in 1953. Cartwright had been heir to a significant industrial fortune. He'd vanished while traveling in Europe, presumed dead, no body ever found. His estate had eventually passed to a distant cousin. The documents suggested something off about the whole thing. Inconsistencies in dates, a suspicious witness statement, a marriage certificate that seemed too convenient. Jesse had filed his authentication report with the auction house and moved on. But now, pulling up his old notes, he cross-referenced the name of the cousin who'd inherited. Thomas Mooring. An anglicized version would be Moore. Jesse's pulse quickened. He dug deeper, pulling up genealogy records, historical archives, cross-referencing names and dates with the speed of someone who'd spent 15 years chasing documentary evidence. Preston Moore's grandfather was Thomas Mooring. Thomas had inherited the Cartwright fortune in 1954 after James Cartwright was declared legally dead. He'd changed his name to Moore shortly after, claiming it was to honor his mother's maiden name. The fortune had been invested, grown, and passed down through generations. Preston Moore's entire empire was built on what might be stolen inheritance, and Jesse had the documents that could prove it. The next morning, Jesse sat in his small office, a converted bedroom in their house that he'd claimed as his workspace. Maureen had already left for work without a word. He pulled out the Hartwell estate documents from his filing cabinet, examining them with fresh eyes. The evidence was circumstantial but damning. Letters from James Cartwright to Dorothy Hartwell. They'd been engaged, expressing concerns about Thomas Mooring's behavior. A witness statement that placed Thomas in Europe at the same time Cartwright disappeared, despite Thomas claiming to be in Boston. A marriage certificate showing Thomas married a woman named Elena Rostova in Paris in 1953. Suspicious because Elena Rostova bore a striking resemblance to descriptions of a woman Cartwright had written about in his letters, claiming she tried to seduce him for his money. If someone knew what to look for, these documents suggested that Thomas Mooring had orchestrated Cartwright's disappearance, possibly murder, to claim the inheritance. Jesse photographed every page, uploading them to an encrypted cloud storage. Then he sat back, thinking. Preston must have learned about the estate sale somehow. Maybe he monitored such things, worried about family skeletons emerging. He would have seen Jesse's name on the authentication report, done his research, found out Jesse was married to an ambitious woman who might be vulnerable to the right kind of attention. The affair wasn't about desire. It was about access. Preston needed to know if Jesse had kept copies of the documents, where they were stored, whether Jesse understood their significance. And the yet, in Maureen's confession, meant they hadn't found what they were looking for. They needed more time. Jesse smiled grimly. They weren't going to get it. Jesse spent the next 2 days playing the role of wounded husband. He stayed at the hotel, sent Maureen terse messages, acted exactly as someone in his position should. But his evenings were spent differently. He hired a private investigator, not for the affair, but for Preston Moore's current activities. The investigator, a former cop named Keith Fox, was efficient and discreet. Within 24 hours, Jesse had confirmation. Preston had been making frequent visits to Apex Athletic at times that coincided with Maureen's gym schedule. Security footage showed them leaving together on multiple occasions. More interesting was what Keith found about Preston's business dealings. The Moore empire was over-leveraged. Preston had made aggressive investments that weren't paying off. He needed capital, and more than that, he needed his family's reputation spotless for a major business deal with European investors, old money types who valued lineage and legitimacy. If the truth about his grandfather came out, the deal would collapse. Worse, legal challenges could be mounted against the Moore family assets. Preston stood to lose everything. Your wife, Keith said during their meeting at a diner across town, started at Apex 8 months ago. That's about 2 weeks after the Hartwell estate auction records became public. So he's been planning this for a while. Keith nodded. My guess? He started with surveillance, learned your routines, identified your wife as a potential access point. The affair is work for him. Jesse stirred his coffee, thinking, what's his endgame? Best case for him? He finds the documents, destroys them, the problem goes away. Worst case, he can't find them, so he needs to discredit you. Make you look unstable, untrustworthy. Maybe set you up for something criminal. If your professional reputation is destroyed, no one believes any evidence you present. And Maureen's role? Keith's expression was sympathetic but hard. She's either a willing accomplice getting paid, or she's the kind of person who saw an opportunity and took it. Either way, she's in it. Jesse paid the bill and left. Back in his hotel room, he opened his laptop and began drafting an email. Not to Preston, not to Maureen, to someone who would appreciate the historical significance of what he'd found. Dr. Shirley Heath, a professor of American history at Columbia University and an expert on post-war inheritance fraud, had written extensively about cases exactly like the Cartwright disappearance. Jesse attached scans of select documents and wrote a carefully worded message explaining his findings, asking for her expert opinion. Her response came within hours. This is extraordinary. If authenticated, this could rewrite our understanding of several prominent families. I'd like to examine the originals. Can we meet? Jesse smiled. Phase 1 complete. Now Preston would have to react. He returned home on Sunday evening. Maureen was in the kitchen, making dinner, an obvious peace offering. She looked tired, worried. Jesse, she said carefully, I'm glad you're back. Can we talk? About what? He kept his voice neutral, interested. About us. I made a mistake. I want to fix things. He studied her. She was good, genuinely seemed remorseful. But there was calculation in her eyes, watching his reactions, measuring his responses. Who is he? Jesse asked. She hesitated, then, no one important. It's over. I ended it. Liar. He said it calmly, without heat. You can't end it because it's not about wanting him. It's about whatever you're both trying to accomplish. So let's try this again. What does Preston Moore want? Her face went white. How do you? I'm a researcher, Maureen. It's literally what I do for a living. Find connections, verify sources, uncover truths people tried to bury. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? She backed against the counter. Jesse, it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. For a moment, he thought she might. Her mouth opened, and he saw genuine fear in her eyes. But then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression hardened. I want a divorce, she said. I'll move out tomorrow. We can split assets fairly. No lawyers if you're reasonable. Reasonable, Jesse repeated. Meaning I give you what you want, don't make waves, don't ask questions. Meaning we both move on with our lives. He nodded slowly. Okay, take what you need tonight. I'll sleep in the guest room. We'll figure out the details this week. She looked surprised, almost disappointed. Really? Just like that? Just like that? He walked past her toward the stairs, then paused. Out of curiosity, what was Preston offering you? Money? A life upgrade? Or were you in it from the beginning, before we even met? The question hung in the air. Maureen's expression flickered. Guilt, anger, something else he couldn't quite read. You were always so caught up in your dusty old documents, she said finally. So oblivious to everything else. You never even noticed when I started checking your files, your computer, your office. Looking for one specific folder from that estate sale. Preston said you'd have copies, that you always keep everything. But I couldn't find it. There it was. Confession and resentment, all at once. That's because I knew someone might come looking, Jesse said quietly. The documents aren't here, Maureen. They never were. But thank you for confirming what I suspected. Her eyes widened in realization. She'd been played, given away more than she'd meant to. Jesse climbed the stairs, leaving her standing in the kitchen. Behind him, he heard her frantically dialing her phone, Preston's name a harsh whisper. Good. Let them panic. Let them wonder what he knew, what he'd done, where the documents were. Let them make mistakes. In the guest room, Jesse opened his laptop and checked his encrypted email. Dr. Heath had sent another message. I've consulted with colleagues. This evidence could support criminal fraud charges across multiple jurisdictions, not to mention civil suits. The Cartwright family descendants would have legal standing. This is bigger than I initially thought. When can we meet? Jesse typed his response. How about a public forum? I'm thinking a lecture or symposium where these findings can be presented to the academic community and the press simultaneously. Harder to suppress that way. Her reply was almost immediate. I can arrange something for next week. Let me make some calls. Jesse closed the laptop and allowed himself a small smile. Preston Moore wanted the documents destroyed and Jesse discredited. Instead, he was about to get exposure on a scale that would destroy everything he'd built. And Maureen? She'd chosen her side. Now she'd live with the consequences. The next morning, Jesse woke to find Maureen gone. Most of her clothes were missing, along with her laptop and personal items. She'd left the divorce papers on the kitchen counter with a note. Sign these. Make this easy. He photographed the note and papers, then called Keith Fox. I need surveillance on Preston Moore's properties. I think things are about to escalate. Keith's voice was grim. Already on it. He met with someone last night. Former cop who got kicked off the force for evidence tampering. Not a good sign. Jesse felt ice in his stomach, but kept his voice steady. What's the play? Could be anything from planting evidence to a more direct threat. Watch your back. Jesse spent the day fortifying his position. He gave copies of all the documents to Dr. Heath, to his lawyer, to a journalist friend who specialized in financial crime. He wrote a detailed account of everything. The affair, the connection to Preston, the historical fraud, and stored it in multiple locations with instructions to release if anything happened to him. That evening, as he was leaving his office, he noticed a car parked across the street. Tinted windows. Engine running. When he drove away, it followed at a careful distance. So that was how Preston wanted to play it. Jesse led the car on a winding route through the city, then pulled into a police station parking lot. The car drove past, but Jesse knew this wasn't over. He called Keith from inside the station. They're moving to intimidation, Jesse said, which means they're desperate. The symposium is in 4 days, Keith reminded him. They might try something before then. Let them try. Jesse felt a cold anger settling in, pushing out the hurt over Maureen, the betrayal. This was about justice now. I want to know every move Preston makes. Every call, every meeting. If he so much as jaywalks, I want evidence. You're building a case. I'm building his coffin. Over the next 3 days, Preston Moore made every mistake Jesse had hoped for. Desperate to stop the symposium, he tried to pressure Dr. Heath through university channels. He had his lawyer send threatening cease and desist letters. He even approached the journalist, offering money to kill the story. Each action was documented, recorded, added to the growing file. Preston was creating a pattern of obstruction and intimidation that would look damning in court. On the 3rd night, Jesse got a call from Maureen. Her voice was shaky, afraid. Jesse, you need to stop this. Preston is talking about doing something drastic. He's not who I thought he was. I'm scared. Then go to the police. I can't. I'm involved. I helped him. I could be charged with conspiracy, breaking and entering. Yes, you could. Those are consequences, Maureen. Actions have them. Please. He's talking about making you look crazy. He has someone who can plant things, make it look like you're unstable. He wants you committed, discredited, so no one believes you. Jesse felt a chill, but kept his voice calm. And you're warning me because? Because I didn't sign up for this. I thought it was just about getting some papers, maybe a payout. I didn't know about the fraud, the history of it. And I didn't think he'd. Her voice broke. He's dangerous, Jesse. Really dangerous. Then testify against him. Turn state's evidence. It's your only way out. Silence. Then, I'll think about it. She hung up. Jesse immediately called Keith. Preston's planning something for tomorrow. We need to be ready. The symposium was held at Columbia, in a lecture hall that seated 200 people. Dr. Heath had promoted it well. Academics, journalists, even some legal experts were in attendance. In the front row sat representatives from the Cartwright family, descendants who'd been tracked down and informed of the potential fraud. Jesse stood at the podium, the documents displayed on a large screen behind him. He walked through the evidence methodically. The letters, the timeline discrepancies, the suspicious marriage, the too convenient inheritance. He showed how Thomas Mooring had changed his name, how the Moore fortune was built on what appeared to be murder and fraud. The room was silent, riveted. Camera flashes went off. Journalists scribbled notes. Then, halfway through the presentation, the doors burst open. Preston Moore strode in, flanked by 2 lawyers. He looked every inch the entitled businessman. Expensive suit, confident stride, practiced smile. This is slander, he announced loudly. This man is unstable, obsessed with my family because of a personal vendetta. His own wife left him because of his paranoid delusions. Jesse smiled calmly. Mr. Moore, I was hoping you'd attend. Dr. Heath, could you please play the recording? Dr. Heath pressed a button. Suddenly, audio filled the room. Preston's voice, crystal clear. I don't care what you have to do. Discredit him, frame him, I don't care. Those documents can't go public. If they do, I lose everything. The recording was from 2 days ago. Preston had said it to his ex-cop friend, not knowing Keith had planted a bug in Preston's car. Preston's face went white, then red. That's illegal. Inadmissible. In court, maybe, Jesse said. But we're not in court, Mr. Moore. We're in the court of public opinion. And these documents? They're going to the FBI, the state attorney general, and every media outlet in the country. Your family built its fortune on murder and fraud. That fortune is forfeit. The room erupted. Journalists rushed forward with questions. The Cartwright family representatives stood, faces shocked but determined. Preston's lawyers were pulling him toward the exit, but it was too late. The damage was done. As Preston was dragged out, he locked eyes with Jesse. You've ruined me, he said, his voice shaking with rage. No, Jesse replied calmly. You ruined yourself. I just exposed it. 3 months later, Jesse sat in his office, now truly his own. Maureen had moved out permanently, the divorce finalized. She'd taken a plea deal, testifying against Preston in exchange for probation and community service. Preston himself was facing multiple criminal charges and civil suits. The Moore fortune was frozen, tied up in legal proceedings that would take years to resolve. Jesse's phone rang. Dr. Heath's number. Jesse, I wanted to let you know, the university is offering you a position. Resident expert on documentary fraud. We think your skills could benefit the department. He looked around his small office, at the stacks of papers and old documents that had always been his refuge. Then he thought about the months of lies, the betrayal, the elaborate scheme that had almost worked. I'll think about it, he said. Right now, I'm enjoying some peace and quiet. After he hung up, Jesse permitted himself a rare moment of satisfaction. He'd been hurt, betrayed, targeted, but he'd turned it around, used his intelligence and patience to dismantle his enemies completely. Preston Moore was ruined. Maureen was facing consequences. And Jesse? Jesse was free, victorious, and ready for whatever came next. He opened a new folder on his desk, another estate sale, another collection of documents to authenticate. He smiled and got to work. This was who he was, someone who found truth, no matter how deeply buried. And truth, in the end, always won.